Hello, in this video, I am going to teach you a skill that will change your parenting experience forever, and that is how to stop taking your child's behaviors personally. In this video, I'm going to break down why we take our children's behaviors personally, what happens when we do, and how you can stop this cycle and actually help your child regulate. All right, let's get to it. First, why do we take our children's behaviors personally? Because we love them, because they're our children, because we spend all of our day and all of our night trying to do everything that we can to help them. So when they do something like ignore us or scream at us or call us names, hit, kick, we're going to take it personally. That is a natural, normal reaction. However, the moment this happens, your brain interprets the situation as a danger. That triggers your fight or flight response. This is an automatic biological reaction that's designed to protect you. And if your instinct is to fight, you might yell back, demand compliance, resort to punishments, and in a way, overreact in a way that feels too harsh. But if you are in a flight mode, you might shut down, you might leave the room, and you might just detach and withdraw completely. Either way, in that split second, your brain is not thinking rationally, it's reacting from stress. It doesn't stop there. Your thoughts start racing and you start layering meaning onto the situation. They don't respect me. They don't love me. Why do they treat me like this? I'm the only person that they treat like this. And these are all examples of you taking the behaviors personally. And the more we focus on these thoughts, the more real they feel. And the more convinced we are that our child's behavior is personal. And once we believe this, our reactions become even more emotional. We lose even more control of the situation. And this can create a vicious cycle. Before I get to how to break the cycle, let's talk about what happens when you take your child's behaviors personally. Two things happen. First, you react. We yell back, we lecture, we tell our child that they are rude, they are ungrateful, or they're disrespectful. Or maybe we don't say any of these things out loud, but we say them in our own brains, creating the stress. And as our stress builds, our children know it. They can feel our energy. And even more than that, whatever energy we are feeling, that is the energy that is fueling our actions, our tone of voice, the way we speak to them, our body language. All of those cues of safety that we want to put off to our children aren't there because we are in a fight flight response. But that's not the only thing. And which leads me to the next thing that's happening when we are taking our child's behaviors personally. We're not just reacting, we are co-escalating them. So whenever you meet dysregulation with dysregulation, boom, okay? This means instead of bringing some calm to the situation, you are pouring fuel on the fire by bringing your own stress and frustrated energy to the situation. So let me give you a real life example of this from one of my clients. My client had this situation where she really struggled to have her son listen to her. Whether it was cleaning up his toys, getting ready to bed, he always resisted her. But whenever the BCBA was in the house or dad got home from work and they gave a command, child snapped to attention and they did the thing almost immediately. And then mom is feeling like a complete failure. She actually went to the trouble of recording her interactions with her son because she didn't think anyone believed her based on how the child was acting with other people. So you can see in this situation how easy this would be for mom to take it personally because it's just happening with her. It's not happening with other people. This created so much frustration for her with her child. When he didn't comply with her, she would get very upset very quickly. And that would look like yelling, screaming, grabbing away the iPad, saying things like, you never do this with anybody else, and getting really dysregulated on her own. So you can imagine now, if mom is getting dysregulated, she's acting harsher than usual towards her child, that the child reacted. And of course they do. They yell, they cry. Instead of cleaning up those toys, they're throwing the toys. And there you go, all creating more evidence for her of what she believed in the first place is that my child doesn't respect me. This is what the cycle looks like I want to give you another example from a parent of a teenage child. In this situation, mom was setting a boundary with respect to bedtime and tablet time, and the child was resisting it. So, what did mom do? She turned off the internet connection, and tablet time was no more. And the child got so mad. And so, what did she do? She yelled, "I hate you. You're the worst. You never let me do anything." This is like at 10 o'clock at night, and my client has put in a full day of work, a full day of caretaking for her child in various aspects. And this was it for her. She was so frustrated. How dare she talk to me that way? I spent all of my waking time and energy trying to support her, trying to make her life better. And she's saying she hates me? When you're already exhausted, when you're already putting in double time to help your child, a comment like this can really throw you over the edge. And that's what it did for my client. She got so angry with her child so quickly, started lecturing her on how lucky she was and all the things that she does for her. And oh, you're upset that you don't have iPad tonight. How about we make that a week? And we're off to the races, right? Moms are dysregulated, daughters dysregulated. They are co escalating one another, and no one is stopping to pause. So that is the real work here. I want to teach you how to be able to do this in the heat of the moment. But first, I want you to try this little exercise. I want you to take a piece of paper or take out your notes app and identify 3 instances where you have taken your child's behaviors personally, whether you felt disrespected, unappreciated, or like a failure as a parent, and be as specific as possible. Things like, my child screamed at me when I told them it was time to leave the park, or I cooked them exactly what they wanted, exactly the way they like it, and they didn't even eat their food. Or they ignore me when I tell them to get ready for bed, but they comply with dad. Whatever it is, write it down. Now, I want you to pause and I want you to imagine that you are unable to take any of these behaviors personally. It's just not possible. I want you, for each one of those instances that you identified, is to ask yourself, what else might explain these behaviors? What else might explain these behaviors that has nothing to do with me? Were they tired? Were they sad? Was it sensory overwhelm? Was it the tipping point after a long day of things going wrong? This was the straw that broke the camel's back. I want you to think deeply about what could have caused this behavior that has nothing to do with you. And in doing this, I want to remind you of 3 things. Biological age and developmental age are not the same thing. They are very different. And usually, and for a lot of our children, they are behind developmentally. Number 2, when your child is dysregulated in fight flight, thinking brain goes out the window, just like it does with you. And 3, they are autistic. This means no matter how much progress they have made in life, they still are wired as autistic people who have sensory sensitivities, low frustration tolerance, struggles with executive functioning, struggles with impulsivity, and communication challenges. And even for the children who do speak, when they are dysregulated, that speech goes right out the window. That any sophisticated kind of speech that they have goes right out the window, and they go back. And children who have communication difficulties, whether they're verbal, or whether they're nonverbal or not, remember that all of this influences what's going on inside, all of the things that you can't see, right? I want you to think of what you're seeing, this meltdown, whatever behavior that they are exhibiting. I want you to see that as the top of the iceberg. The top of the iceberg and what you see has you interpreting their behavior as personal to you. That's why your work right now is to go below that iceberg and to tease out the other factors and the other things that may have been going on in those moments that created that behavior that have nothing to do with you. All right, now that you have identified those examples and investigated them more, and you have a better idea of what was creating that behavior that has nothing to do with you, I want you to take this information and create a couple of go-to sentences, go-to thoughts that you can think about this behavior that have nothing to do with you. Let me give you an example. I'm a full-time single mother to my son with autism. So I do all of the things with him all of the time. When I'm talking to his father about different situations with my son, I don't know what you're talking about. He doesn't do that with me. That's not a problem with me. And it's really easy for me to get triggered by that because I go to automatically, he doesn't respect me. He doesn't respect me, he doesn't love me, or I'm not doing something right, or I'm doing something wrong. That's how I take it personally. And I needed to decide how I wanted to think about this situation. So I wouldn't constantly be triggered by it and then taking it out on my son in some shape or form. What I decided to think about this behavior in general is that his safe place, his person. And of course, I'm going to be the person that he pushes limits with. I have to deal with doctor's appointments, I have to deal with school and all of the non preferred activities of life. So, of course, there's going to be that difference. And I needed to remind myself of that over and over because otherwise, it was so easy to go into that default reaction of taking it personally and then spinning in my mind about this, getting frustrated and taking it out on my son. I needed to stop that cycle. And the way to stop the cycle started with how I was going to decide to think about this situation. The same thing with my client who struggled with her son complying with her request. Once she was able to step back and stop taking this behavior personally, she was able to uncover such valuable information by just observing how she approached her son with requests or commands versus the BCBA and dad. And sure enough, the BCBA and dad were firm in their request. It sounded like a request, not a question, or that would be nice, or a could you please. And they enforced the request. And so, knowing this, so knowing that the child was aware of this, and knowing that the child knew that if he ignored mom a couple of times, that she would eventually just do it, you can really understand that this had nothing to do with him not loving her or not respecting her. From this information, my client was able to change her approach. And guess what? She got a lot more compliance from her son, or as much compliance as anybody can get from a 5-year-old with that approach. But that was only available to her because she was willing to pause and get curious about what else is happening here. So that's what I want you to do for yourself. I want you to decide ahead of time how you want to think about non-compliant, rude, disrespectful, whatever you want to call it, behavior before it happens. So that when it does happen, you're not going to your default thoughts, triggering your fight flight response. Instead, you are able to stay more grounded. And then when you're able to stay more grounded, you get to respond instead of react. Which brings me to step number 3. Decide ahead of time how you will respond the next time your child does the thing that triggers the thoughts of disrespect, them not loving you, them not caring about you. Decide now what you want to think about it and how you will respond. This is where your power lies. We cannot control our children. We cannot control the fact that they will do or say things that trigger us, but we can control how we decide to think about it and how we decide to respond to it. That means you can decide now how you want to handle it. To sum up, the 3 steps to stop taking behaviors personally is 1, recognize your triggers, recognize the behaviors, the situations where you have taken things personally in the past. Number 2, investigate those common triggers and investigate those behaviors to decide ahead of time what you want to think about them before they happen. And then finally, once you've decided what you want to think about those behaviors, decide ahead of time how you want to respond. This shift will change everything for you. This one shift, changing how you interpret your child's behaviors, will change everything. It will change how you respond. It will change your ability to stay calm. It will change your child's ability to regulate and to look to you as a calming presence. All right, so your homework is to pick at least one situation that you have taken personally in the past, investigate that situation, and decide now what is the one go to belief that you can create for yourself that will help you stay calm in the moment. My favorite is he is dysregulated or he is in a fight flight response. Also, I like he is not available right now. This is all to remind me that my son's behaviors, just like your child's behaviors, have to do with them and what's going on with them. And our job as their parents is to stay focused on that and stop taking the behaviors personally. All right, that is it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below.